Hi, my name is Michael Trout. I'm the founder and CEO of Foundups Corp. And I want to make a talk, an important talk, that I call How Do We Save Our Planet? Because it's something that I've been thinking about since 2001 when I launched an early startup of mine called eduit.org, Education Using Information Technology. And I really thought back then that education could be a tool to saving our planet. Because education is the only way to bring about social change. But since then, I've done a lot of startups, and I realize that the problem is far beyond education. And the first thing we've got to step back and realize that we live on this little blue dot, and ultimately there's only so much stuff on it. And the simple fact is, we're starting to realize that there's something terribly wrong going on, and we're starting to look at the corporations who are basically raping our planet and stealing from the greater stakeholders, you and I. And they're consuming so much and they're producing so much, right? It's kind of like a runaway train down a hill, and at the bottom of this hill is this massive cliff. So I say to you again, how do I save our planet from this? Because China is coming on board, India is coming on board, all these other countries are quickly trying to get to the American, footprint, and it's not possible. So how do we save our planet? You can think of it this way: think of the planet as a snake. We're eating itself. We're eating it. And we're pretty much probably, I think, 3/4 of the way around, to be honest with you. And we're eating faster and faster and faster. So I say to yourself again, how do I save our planet from climate change, from rising sea levels, from deforestation, from depletion of fisheries? 90% of them are gone, the large fish. From water contamination. Of the 2.5% of water available on the planet is drinkable, is fresh, or only 2.5%, only 0.07% is accessible to us. And of that, we're polluting 70% using agrochemicals like Roundup from Monsanto and all that. Those neonicotinoids, systemic pesticides, right? And the other 20% by industry, from fracking and all this other crap that the industry is doing, and coal mining, and they have to use water and cleaning and all that crap. And as a result, our bees are dying. And our bees are dying basically, and I've been saying this for years now, is because of the water, not because of the pollen. The water is contaminated with all these agrochemicals and everything else. It's just, for a little bee, it's just not, it's not sustainable. So who's responsible? I've already alluded to who's responsible. It's these guys, it's the corporations. This is just a few of them. Every corporation in the world is unsustainable, and I'm mainly focused at the multi-million level corporations, right? Not really I'm not talking about the mom and pop corporations or who are running their little store. They could be sustainable. I'm talking about the large corporations that are on the New York Stock Exchange, the Nasdaq, and so on. I'm talking about these guys. If you're one of them, they're the ones responsible. And if we look at, for example, Apple, everyone loves Apple, but when you think of Apple and the whole industry, the footprint of what it takes to produce these smart devices, and you multiply this by 10,000 or 100 times, 100,000 times, this is the sort of carnage that we're causing the planet. It's massive. And you have to ask yourself, is this sustainable? And the answer is no, it's not sustainable. And we can turn around and look at what's going on with the oceans and with all the bottling companies from Coca-Cola and Pepsi and so on, and all this crap that's in there. You have islands the size of Texas now of plastic. Is this sustainable? No. The pollution industry is causing is not sustainable. And who's benefiting from it? Are we benefiting? Are we benefiting from the toxic water? Are we benefiting? We're not benefiting. The 1% are benefiting. They're making the millions, the billions, in selling their crap to us, enablers. We're cutting down the lungs of our planet. And it's really sad because ultimately, as a result of all this, we've brought about something called climate change. And now the science is there. We can't deny it. Time's running out. And who's responsible? Well, it's brought on by greed, for money, as a result of corporations who are unchecked. And there's no way to check them. They're out of control. So the question is we have these corporations that are run by the 1% or founded by the 1%. The rest of us are either indentured servants, the employees, or we're enablers, the greater stakeholders, have no say. And ultimately, we have to ask ourselves, how is it that we can transform something that's selfish, that cares only about money, benefits very few, spends billions on lobbying and getting their own presidents and, in power, and ultimately harming the planet. And how do we fix this? Because we can't turn to government because they're bought. We can't turn to, we could try the French Revolution again and break out the guillotine, but I don't think we can do that again because, there's police states now. So we have to admit, and I don't know if you're on the page, do you agree with me right now that corporations are directly and indirectly responsible for every crisis facing the planet? Do you believe that? Because if you don't believe it, turn it off right now or watch it again, or go do some research. If you do believe it, move on. Because in order for us to save the planet, it means that we need to transform the corporation, transform it to something else. What if corporations were selfless? Right? We're transparent, which means you can see their books. You can't cheat if you can see the books. We're carbon negative versus carbon positive, meaning they took carbon from the atmosphere, or they did other activities to do the same. Right? They were rewarded. They may be carbon negative, positive. However, they did other activities that made them carbon negative. Right? As long as they take more carbon than what they produce, they're carbon negative. There's ways to do that. What if corporations reinvested up to 80% of their net profit instead of the 1% back into launching more such corporations? And what if we introduce a new stakeholder to them called the greater stakeholder? These greater stakeholders, think of them as followers of the corporation, ultimately ratify CEOs. If there's a crisis and they can actually do it like an impeachment or call to action, right? And the CEO is accountable. So someone like Exxon, the CEO of Exxon after the Gulf, would not be the CEO of Exxon anymore, or British Petroleum. He would have been kicked out because it would have been up in arms. So it was a vehicle for us greater stakeholders to take action against the CEOs. That's it, right? To at least chop one person's head off. Maybe we won't cut him off physically, but we could kick him out of the corporation. And it's mandated, and there's ways for that to happen. The problem is this: is why would any oligarchy, right? Any 1% want this, right? Why would they support this vision? Because basically I'm saying, hey, you no longer are in power. We are dethroning your power. We're causing a revolution. So before I tell you, we need to ask ourselves how these corporations started. Because if we can't change the current ones, then the only solution is to change the future ones. Right? And if we can change the future ones in such a way that they can reproduce themselves quicker than the original ones, then we can win. So how do corporations start? With an idea. Well, this idea then is taken to what I call the 1%, or the accredited investor, the ones with money, and they provide the funding to get them going. But you have to understand that only about 0.25% of pre-seed startups become seeded startups. Very few. Why? You have to remember, there's only 1% who have the money. They can't be 1% of the startups succeed. There's only so much money out there. So, and they can all, and the problem is the access to capital becomes the biggest issue facing startups. So all these people who have money right now are able to launch business, but us who don't have money, we can't. So we're kind of trapped. So in looking at the 3 stages of the startup, I already talked about the seed. That's where the idea comes in and they get funding. That's why Silicon Valley is so important, because there's lots of money and lots of funders there. There's the seeded. Well, this is where the institutional investors, they put money in right early on before the IPO or up to the IPO. And then there's the pre-seed, where most of us sit. And if we look at the pre-seed, there's a major problem. 99.97 fail to become seed startups. And why did they fail? Well, I'll tell you why they failed. Is because ultimately there's funding gatekeepers who are picking and choosing based on their whims and desires, based on their formulas of profit and everything else, which ones move forward. And it could be Founders Institute, AngelPad, Y Combinator, Techstars. These is none of them. There's actually thousands of them. And the 1% control them, and ultimately they decide. So what if there was a way to launch ideas without gatekeepers? That's what I started thinking about. How would I do it? So I started spending years on contemplating how would I remove the gatekeepers from it. Well, what I realized, it means we'd have to disrupt the startup of the 1%, and we'd have to actually replace it with something new, which I call the Foundup. A Foundup has no gatekeepers. It's fun and easy. Anyone can do one anywhere. It's riskless. There's a nice word I've invented, riskless. It has no risk, right? And ultimately, there's no cost but a little bit of time. And they happen on Foundups.com and Play Foundups app. So, how will Foundups save the planet, you're wondering? Well, I'll tell you exactly how they'll save it. One is, all of a sudden, imagine there's no gatekeeper, so all this innovation that's been held up is also free to happen. All these projects that don't meet the return on investment can happen, right? A flood of innovation is going to happen that's going to help save the planet. It's going to supercharge. Instead of having hundreds of plans, we'll have tens of thousands, millions of projects that are going to get funded and accessible. All these projects are carbon negative, which meaning that they're taking carbon out, so we can start retracting the carbon, not adding to it. And most importantly, they're selfless, not selfish, selfless. You put the interests of the world and 99% first, not the 1%, not their profits, not the profit margins. By launching Foundups, right, that invest up to 80% back onto Foundups and Foundups.com and Play Foundups. So let me explain that to you, right? I believe that within 10 years of launching Foundups, we'll have more selfless corporations than selfish corporations, more open corporations versus the current closed corporations, more corporation 2.0s versus corporation 1.0s, all right? And ultimately, let me explain to you how this will happen. Well, you've got Foundups, you have people putting their ideas on us. Well, as these ideas level up, right, and validate, some of them will eventually launch. When they launch, they become their own independent entity, but remember, they reinvest up to 80% back into the system. Well, that reinvestment, what does it do? It actually helps mature other ideas quicker, which launch, and what do? Reinvest up to 80% of their net profits back into the system, which helps more ideas mature and develop, and wow, more launch and reinvest, and more launch and reinvest. What happens is, what we have is what we call the snowball effect. So this is why I can say within 10 years of launching Foundups.com, we're going to have more open corporations, we're going to have more innovation, more all of this than what we've had in the last 50, only because we're going to free innovation by removing gatekeepers. So, what's a Foundup? Well, really simple. It's a founder with an idea to improve the world using the open innovation framework that I've invented. I've spent the last 4 years working on developing. What is OIF? What is the open innovation framework? Well, it's simple. It's a software as a service solution that does all the heavy lifting. It does the validation, it secures the IP, it builds the team, it funds, it launches any Foundup on Foundups.com and Play Foundup that are validated. And most importantly, there are no gatekeepers. So, what's the next step? Well, if you like what I'm doing, contact me. If you're interested in supporting a crowdfunding campaign, let me know and tell me how much you would contribute. And I'll tell you why, because ultimately over 99% of crowdfunding fails, and they fail because they don't have enough grassroots support. So I'm doing these talks in order to tell you that there is a solution. I've worked on a solution. I want to push it out. There's a big chili pepper between the legs, hot red chili pepper. Here's a Foundup, right? We're all trying to push out our innovation, and I want to free us and give us the pill to do it, and that is Foundup. So contact me, let me know what you think, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this talk, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please like it, please share it.